Hello, fellow seekers. Welcome back to the Law of One Spiritual Advice podcast. My name is El, and today I return to share with you some thoughts on UFOs and my opinions and how it relates to the Law of One material. And so there is a lot of news going on right now about UFOs, and I thought I would take the opportunity to share with you a few things that I am aware of and the possibilities as to what's happening. So I'm not going to tell you what to think, but I'm going to give you a range of possibilities that you can choose from, and just to better serve you so that you're not being so certain about one kind of thing over the other. Instead, you can make your own choices as to what you decide. So I want to just give you the answers really quickly, briefly, and then I'm going to break down each of them. So first of all, there's the possibility that they're offering us mystery. They may be actual ETs offering us mystery. There may also be a possibility that there is a type of nuclear war possibility going on in our future, and they're trying to offer us some choice in that regard. There is a possibility there's secret government tech, and there's even these possibilities of what they call Project Bluebeam, and we're going to go into each of these, and I'm going to break them down. So let us just begin with my understanding of what a positive ET situation would be. So I have to kind of explain a bit of metaphysical things at first, which is that our planet operates in the realms of free will. And so, especially our planet has sort of some rules that any outsiders who wish to come have to sort of go to what they call the council. And the council then is like a metaphysical council, can decide, hey, is what you're coming here to do going to be helpful? Is it going to infringe on the free will of these people? Is it not going to? All right, we have considered what your plan is, and we either grant it or deny it, and then they can then come into our planet, sort of, and do various things. Now, these various things, to my understanding, if they are a positive entity, because there can be positive UFOs and negative UFOs as well, you have both of these situations going on where positive UFO, it's not, you don't have to think of them as UFOs, because a lot of times they're not physical UFOs, they're actually just thought forms. They're actually just visuals that you can see, and they're not physically there in a way. It's more a thought form, because as they state here in some of the material is that they're allowed to, when their quarantine is lifted and they're allowed to come to Earth, can offer us a certain set of things, but they often aren't coming in body form. They're not coming in person to be like, hello, we are alien and we want to tell you how to fix everything, because that would be infringing on our planet Earth's free will to decide our own destiny, to decide what we are going to do. If, it's sort of like a test, and if somebody just comes down and gives you the answer to the big cosmic test, then you didn't really learn anything. You have to learn by actually experiencing it and going through it and using your free will to make that decision. And that is a global collective conscious decision that we all make together. So even though you may individually make a sort of call, you do also have to compete with everybody else's call on Earth, or may I say non-call on Earth, as to them maybe not wanting to seek. Because when you understand the ways of free will, it basically goes like the seeker puts out a call for help or for service or whatever they are asking for, please help, and something out there in the universe has the opportunity to answer that call. And so as the Earth sort of suffers and goes through a bit of a transition phase right now, there are a lot of people on this Earth who are putting out a call for help, and that call then can be answered by UFO or ET type people in a number of ways. But a lot of the positive UFO experiences should be a positive experience. Like if it manifests as fear in a lot of people's eyes, then you can maybe consider that it maybe wasn't totally a positive contact type situation. Whereas if it maybe instead just injects a little bit of mystery into people's lives, a little bit of, just a little bit of thinking of the infinity of the universe, of like, hey, I thought we figured everything out here. I thought we had everything figured out and we're going to fight each other and go to war. But like, what the heck are these aliens about? Maybe there's a bit more to this life, and maybe we shouldn't just blow each other up. Maybe we should think about the collective consciousness of Earth and what our collective decisions will be in the future. So I'm going to read you some quotes, but I found that I like to more just give you some of my opinions first, and then I'll back them up with some quotes later. So the real positive ETs, they like to respect free will, and they usually only appear as thought forms. But the thought forms can be basically messages to you, like to people's brains. But often it is more like a UFO which has entered the vicinity and has offered some people a bit of mystery into their lives. And sometimes I suppose it can still be a little bit scary for some, but sometimes when you see a UFO and if you have the right perspective on it, it might actually seem like a kind of a wonderful experience. Which brings me to the first point, which I've already kind of gone over, but one of the first possibilities of what you're seeing with a UFO is they're offering you, as they say, the nominal, or I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but the mysterious. So they come to offer us mystery. And that kind of rolls into the second possibility, which I will just sort of link these two together because they play off one another. So this other possibility is that we are maybe going into a time of, a kind of a nuclear war type time. Now, from my understanding, reading the Law of One material before, what they've stated in terms of our history is that previously, when we had first come into contact with the nuclear bomb and we kind of detonated our first couple and blew up those cities as they did, there was some free will which was abridged in doing that, is what I'm to understand. I mean, it's a lot to break down. I'll try to make it simple, but basically, as the nuclear war blows up a person, apparently the nuclear fission, like the intensity of the explosion is so intense, it almost rips through, you're in space-time, and then there's also the time-space analog of that. It almost like rips through both of them. And the way that I understood it is that they basically say that a soul is infinite and nothing is ever lost to the creator. Nothing is ever lost to the creator. No soul is ever so hopelessly lost that, it can't be redeemed and found. And so what they were kind of explaining with the nuclear bomb that went off is it put a lot of the souls that got blown up into a sort of fear knot, a knot of fear, which was almost impossible to untangle. And it was these souls were kind of stuck there, not knowing what happened to them, not able to make sense of their being, and not able to put their metaphysical soul aspects back together in order to reincarnate into third density and try to make these decisions again. So I know that's a lot to take in, but that, to my understanding, is why they sort of lift the quarantine in this regard when it comes to nuclear weapons, because the nuclear weapons have a bit of an advantage in the fact that they're like sort of unfair against free will in just certain respects. And so then there's certain aspects that positive UFOs can maybe interfere with nuclear capabilities as they might to avoid, that type of situation from happening again. And I'll let you know that before that knot of fear was eventually undone with a lot of due care. However, some of those entities, to my understanding, are still in a healing process. So you can see how it takes quite a long time to heal from something like that. But still, it is sort of the rule, or whatever you may want to call it, that nothing is ever lost to the creator. So as this is happening, and there's the more strong possibility in our future of a possible nuclear war, I'm not saying there is going to be, then that often leads to the council, as they say, of Saturn, which is the quarantiner of our planet, often will lift that quarantine to let them come in and offer us that aspect of mystery, right? So it's like, hey, we're about to go to war, but what is all these UFOs going on in the sky all over? And wow, this is crazy. Like, there is more to the universe than maybe what we think. Maybe we should step back and just try to think about how we're all one, because obviously if like a UFO has come here from somewhere else, they've done that through some aspect of knowing themselves and coming together, or be able to do the technology or come to the thoughts that allow them to travel the universe in that way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there you have the sort of nuclear war and its possible aspects of the polar opposite of offering us that mystery. And then we're going to go into a couple of the more conspiratorial realms, which is worth noting, because there is in the material, they've stated, as the questioner asks about secret government UFO tech, like this, the Law of One info was channeled back in 1982, so this is quite a long time ago. But even back then, I can't remember the exact number, they said something like the U.S. government basically has a secret space force, as you'll read about online, and they do have government tech, and they do have what we would think of as UFOs. So sometimes when you're seeing a UFO, you don't really know what the heck you're looking at. You could be looking at a positive ET, you could be looking at a negative ET who's come here to do some type of negative service, right? The quarantine's also lifted for the negative people as the negative entities call from Earth, and then that quarantine can be lifted for the negative too. But then you also have the possibility of just us normal old people who have a secret government tech, which then, is doing whatever they're doing. Maybe they're having their own sort of secret war, or maybe that even war is sort of already happening in a way, and it's happening in a way that is more hidden and shielded from the everyday view of people. And there's like other countries, it's possible that's not just the US, right? There's probably quite a few countries around our Earth who have their own type of secret tech, and there might be all of this stuff happening below our nose, or whatever you want to call it, and we have no idea. So there's that possibility, and then there is the fancier possibility, which goes back to an old conspiracy from this guy from Canada, where he was talking about Project Bluebeam. I can't remember, it was also in the 80s or 90s or something. So what he is explaining what Project Bluebeam is, it was basically going to be like, it's a plan, it's a conspiracy, okay? So it's not like I'm trying to say that this is going to happen. I'm just trying to give you context so that you understand just another possibility of what people think out there, okay? So the Project Bluebeam was to state something like, hey, holograms, technology is a lot more advanced than we are led to believe, is my understanding. They sort of drip feed us technologies as it is deemed that we can use them or whatever. Like, it's, if they're going to control us, they're not going to let us have something that'll make us too free, okay? But anyways, there's holograms. So you've seen them even now in the last few years. The holograms have gotten really hard to tell from real life if you weren't really looking from like right in front of them. If you were looking from a distance, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a hologram of a car and a real car, as it may be. So the old conspiracy was that they were going to put holograms of the different saviors of the different countries and cultures in the world, like Jesus and Muhammad and all of those folks for each different country, whatever you believe. We're gonna throw up the savior in the sky for each of these people, and we're gonna basically pretend to be God. And in fact, it's actually like the Antichrist, right? And it's tricking everybody and is going to, I don't know, get everyone to enslave. It's usually something to do with control. So it's usually like, hey, we're going to enslave the earth, and we're going to do it by tricking the people through their free will. It always works best when the people don't really know what's going on and they just sort of go along with the plan, as opposed to forcing them to do something that they don't want to do. So that is the Project Bluebeam, was that they're going to put the saviors in the sky. But then you got to take that a little further, right? A little further, because I think that putting Jesus in the sky for a lot of people wouldn't really do a lot. There's not a lot of folks out there that maybe even believe in that stuff, or they would be super skeptical if they saw something like that. So the other aspect of a Project Bluebeam could be like a fake alien invasion, where they use a fake alien invasion as an excuse to give us a, suppose, one world government, as it may be. And that is a possibility, because there was even a quote from one of those presidents a long time ago. I can't remember which one it was, but he said, our planet would probably come together in a heartbeat if we were faced with the threat of an invading force, an invading alien force, right? We would have to put all our sort of lower petty things aside as we get together to sort of fight the enemy, right? And it's just another trick tactic. So I would also like you to consider the possibility that the UFOs that you may see could just be holographic, projections, or they could just even be drones. You don't even need a hologram to do something like that. Drones are so fancy these days, and like I said, there's a lot of hidden tech we don't know about. You could easily do that type of thing with drones. So when I'm seeing right now in the news and the media, a lot of sort of drip feed is what I call it about these types of UFO things, I don't know what to think, to be honest with you. I honestly am just skeptical, because I'm skeptical about everything the media tells me. I usually often watch the media not to understand what's going on in the world, but to understand what they want me to think is going on in the world. If you're wise, that's probably how you should watch media as well. So when I watch it, I have to admit I do not know. And if you are wise, you should probably admit you don't know either. But it's good to be cautious and skeptical and just, have that eye of caution out there that says, I'm not going to make any decisions 100% based on what I'm being told and sort of what the narrative is and what the story is. And we'll know more about what's going on in this news with this whole UFO stuff probably a little later if we see if it actually materializes into anything, or this has happened before many times where they just sort of put things like about UFOs in the news for a while. I don't know why. Maybe to distract you from something else is another possibility. Maybe it's all BS and it's just another distraction, another football game, give them bread and circus and UFOs. So yes, we really don't know, but you want to keep a skeptical eye about these things. And what more can you do other than just to, don't make any drastic decisions that go one way or the other based upon what you're thinking is going on. Have a calm and steady mind and a steady heart, and just think of how may I serve in this situation, right? If things get dark and scary and confusing in this planet, and there's a possibility for that as things get a little bit out of control, I would like to remind you that you don't necessarily need to know what to do in every situation. You just need to look at the self, realign, and ask, how may I serve? And, whatever then comes before you, try your best. And what more can we do, my friends? What more can we do? So I didn't read you any quotes. That is because I found that a lot of people just don't listen to a lot of the podcasts. They tend to sort of drop off after even the first 30 seconds or the first minute or two. So what I like to do now, I'm thinking, is just to give you a lot of my opinions right off the bat so I can make a good summation of what I think is important, and then I can maybe go back and read you some quotes. So even though I just went over a lot of this, I'm going to read you this quote, and you will understand more as I read it. So in session 7.12, the questioner asks, I am interested in the application of the Law of One as it pertains to free will and what I would call the advertising done by UFO contact with the planet. That is, the Council has allowed the quarantine to be lifted many times over the past 30 years. This seems to be a form of advertising for what we are doing right now, so that more people will be awakened. Am I correct? Ra says, I am Ra. It will take a certain amount of untangling of conceptualization of your mental complex to reform your query into an appropriate response. Please bear with us. The Council of Saturn has not allowed the breaking of quarantine in the time-space continuum you mentioned. There is a certain amount of landing taking place. Some of these landings are of your peoples. Some are of the entities known to you as the group of Orion, in other words, the negative entities. Continuing on. Secondly, there is permission granted not to break quarantine by dwelling among you, but to appear in thought form capacity for those who have eyes to see. Thirdly, you are correct in assuming that permission was granted at the time-space in which your first nuclear device was developed and used for Confederation members to minister unto your peoples in such a way as to cause mystery to occur. This is what you mean by advertising and is correct. The mystery and unknown quality of the occurrences we are allowed to offer have the hoped-for intention of making your peoples aware of infinite possibility. When your peoples grasp infinity, then and only then can the gateway be opened to the Law of One. Right, so there's a lot going on in there, and I really don't think I even need to go over it because that was everything that I just stated. They just stated it a lot simpler and quicker and without a lot of explanations. So they call their UFOs in the sky advertising, and it says here, has the hoped for intention of making your peoples aware of infinite possibility, because only when we're aware of infinity, only when we can understand, there's just infinite possibilities out there, and we don't really know for sure what's going on, then then the gateway opens to the Law of One. And just coming to my mind, they're trying to say in a veiled way that to graduate from this density, they state in another quote, one must understand that they do not understand. And to me, that is kind of what they're stating here. When your peoples grasp infinity, in other words, when they understand that they do not understand, then and only then can the gateway, and I'm going to add, to the heart be opened, because the gateway to the heart is that one that says, I understand, I do not understand, I know thy will be done in a way, and that then springboards you up into the higher centers, into the throat chakra, into the indigo chakra, which is the chakra of unity, the chakra of the Law of One. So that's what they're kind of stating here. Only when you grasp the infinity of the unknowing of the heart, then can the gateway be opened to, to the Law of One, to unity. Infinity is unity. because to count infinity and to try to reference it, there is no referent or meaning in infinity, and thus infinity must be described as unity. So, you can point at infinity wherever you'd like, but it's always one, my friends. It's always one. And then just quickly, lastly, I already actually read this quote in the last podcast, so there's no need to read the whole thing again, but I'll just give you the last part of 8.1, which they state in answering a different question. They state, thus, the advertisement is general and not designed to indicate the searching out of any particular material, but only to suggest the nominal aspect of the illusion. In other words, the mysterious aspect of the illusion. So whenever they come here, right, it's all about free will, and so they can't come and be like, hey, shake us by the shoulders and say, you dummies, like, you just gotta point your compass in the way of love and understanding and use your damn hearts. But, that would be too easy, I suppose. And so they have to instead, and well, we wouldn't be learning by ourselves. So instead, all they can really do is, offer us some mystery, offer us choice. We are in the third density, is the density of choice, how to serve the self or to serve others plus the self. And the more that we sort of don't choose that, then the more that these mysterious things collectively will be offered to us in hopes that we make a collective choice. Because I do understand that on Earth right now, there's a lot of confusion in terms of all our peoples aren't pointing the compass in the same direction. So often, how we can actually get out of this is all pointing the compass in the same direction, or at least the majority of us, if we're able to do that together, collectively, as one, meaning that all you can do is you, my friend. It's all you can do is you. You can't change other people. You can only do yourself. But if enough of us take that individual ambition, or whatever you want to call it, to move forward inside the self and to seek understanding and to be a force of love on this planet, then, hopefully if enough of us do that together, then we can maybe graduate here in a positive sense without too much turmoil happening. But there is a lot of confusion going on right now, so as things maybe tip towards the negative, sometimes you may find that there is a lot of mystery injected into our illusion, into our experience, to offer people the choice of how to see things, the choice of how to move forward in life and how to serve. Are we going to be corralled into fighting each other with war and blowing ourselves up, or are we going to come together as one and say, to each of you, I love you, no matter how different you think from me, let us try to get along. And then can we have the nuanced perspective enough in able to do that unity consciousness of combining and having a collective consciousness that's pointed towards the positive without enslaving ourselves to a negative elite who will use that inverted idea of unity, which is enslavement, to control us. Do you see what the choices we are being offered here? But they're very tricky sometimes. We do have unity, but we have also an inverted aspect of unity being offered to us. So we get to have right now the choice, I suppose, to choose unity or to choose the inverted version of unity, which is enslavement to a sort of gross type of globalism, which does not see the free will of the individual as the most important aspect. Instead, they see the sort of free will of the group as the most important aspect, and the group overriding individual free will is it's not very wise, my friends, because once again, then people aren't learning. We only learn when we make the free will decisions ourselves. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. I don't know if that's where you thought this was going, but this is a metaphysical type podcast, so I was going to give you a lot of physical and metaphysical responses when it comes to this topic, and I hope that it doesn't make you think one way or the other, but just widens your perspective in this regard, and just offer you a bit of flexibility in your thinking. You don't have to be so scared or lost when you are reading things on the news about what's going on. So there is that, my friends. I hope that serves you well. If you appreciate this podcast and my service in this regard, please give me a like. Please leave me a comment. Subscribe to the page. If you find value in what I do, I am giving all of this freely, and I would like to continue doing this on a weekly basis, but I do need some of you. I don't need all of you, but I do need some of you to join my Patreon. Shoot me a one-time PayPal. You can do that at theoneinfinitecreator.com. Scroll down to the support section, and I will freely receive there. I'm sorry, you don't get anything for it. I know, you just have to freely give to me, and I will see a pop-up on my phone, and I will smile, and I will say, thank a prayer to the Creator and to you, and God bless you for for giving that reciprocation, and for those of you who can't do that as well, please, no worries at all. I honestly just have to ask, and those who have abundance to share can share, and those who don't, I have no problem at all. You please keep listening to me. I love you no matter what. You can just help maybe the algorithm, share it around, give it a like. That's really all I ask in the very bare minimum. So thank you guys, and thank you to LL Research, who provides us all of this material for free. And you can check out, I have links on my website to all of their stuff too. So you guys, other than that, I hope this helped, and I hope it was interesting, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care.